Hey guys, Andrew Pepper here with Ryan from Ryan's Well Foundation. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of this amazing story. Let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your average day looks like.
My average day, I'm an old man now. I would have started volunteering when I was 6, but now I'm 28, and I'm lucky enough to be working for the foundation. I fundraised and started when I was a kid, and now I'm the executive director, able to help with fundraising, with the project work, and advancing our goal to make sure that everyone in the world has clean water.
That's
So a lot of emails, a lot of fundraisers, a lot of presentations, a lot of communicating and connecting our local on-the-ground partners with the resources they need, as well as educating a lot of kids and people of all ages about water and its importance in the world, not just on the other side of the world, but in our own backyards and here in North America.
I saw a video. What are you up to this week? I saw July 27th was a pretty big anniversary day for a certain community that you helped. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I was 6, I thought that one well was actually going to bring the world clean water because I was 6. And when it turns out that wasn't the case, it was the next best thing. It went towards a school called Ngolo Primary School. And that school got the first clean water source through that well that they had ever had before. They'd have to walk really long distances to outside villages to get it if kids wanted to have clean water at school. So I was actually able to go and visit that school a few years later because we got a gift of air mile points. But I think the school took a really powerful message, is that they challenged their own students to become change makers, because they had heard that a kid had fundraised money for the well, and they looked at their own students and they said, if a kid can, provide water for all of us here, like, what can you do in your community? So for that day, July 27th, in that school, all the kids get the day off, which is good. But for that day, they're challenged to go out and volunteer in their own communities with seniors, with people who are less fortunate than them. So it's kind of a pay it forward type thing. And it's still celebrated in parts of northern Uganda. So that was July 27th, just the other day there.
Love that. So it's pretty amazing to see how God can use, a 6-year-old kid to make an impact around the world for generations to come. What do you have to say to a 6-year-old kid that's watching this video, or even let alone an adult that's going to watch this video?
Well, I think being 6 and being a kid when I first started was actually my greatest strength. My teacher was trying to explain to us why clean water was a problem. And we were asking, 6-year-old questions like, what do you mean? Why don't they just go to the water fountain? Why don't they just turn on the tap? Like, why is there such an issue? And my teacher had explained that everyone had taps, and kids our age had to walk as far as like 2.5 miles sometimes to go get clean water. We didn't know how far that was, 2.5 miles. So my teacher tried to explain it by saying, that's about 5,000 steps, which didn't help because we couldn't count that high. But I remember counting the steps it took me to get from my classroom to the water fountain, and I counted 10 steps. And, when you're in kindergarten, one of the things that's like forced upon you is this idea of sharing with the class and that things were equal. So to hear that they weren't equal, I think really got to us. And when I heard that there was something that I could do, I don't think how complicated it was and how hard it would be wasn't really the issue. It was this the right thing to do? And it was an overwhelming yes. So I wanted to do little chores around my house. I wanted to do little fundraisers. And it didn't matter how complicated it was. If now I'm lucky enough to know a lot about the issues now in terms of how big the problem is and how, we have to look at it in terms of sustainable solutions and all that. But that initial drive and passion had to come from 6-year-old me, because if I knew everything that I knew now, I don't think I would have ever started. So you have to have that naive attitude when it comes to putting a foot in the door, and then, seeing what happens afterwards. Because if we all, find things that we're passionate about and think like kids, want to raise our hand, do something small, and then it may lead to somewhere that you never would have expected.
That's awesome. Tell us about a current project you guys have going on that you're working on right now.
So this year we're working on 3 current projects that actually all just started within the last couple of weeks, which is really good. We delayed the start of a lot of our work because of COVID, and we didn't want to put any of our on-the-ground teams in jeopardy, because especially in Africa, we didn't know how bad it would get hit or how it wouldn't get hit, and we would didn't want to start a project halfway through. But this year we're going to be working on 2 projects in Uganda, one in Western Uganda and one in Northern Uganda, and another in Ghana. Our work in Ghana is specifically at a lot of health clinics and maternity clinics. One of the things there is a lot of the rural maternity clinics can only get funding if they have running water. So it's working collaboratively with those clinics to make sure that they get the water that they need so they can have the proper credentials to apply for more funding. So we've done that work there for the last few years, and we've seen a lot of really good success, a lot of really good stories, and happy to continue. The work's gotten better every year, and it's able to go to people who, you know, have the resources to really take care of the work. And then our work in Northern Uganda is where we worked with for the longest. That's where the original Ryan's Well was. And we were able to have a partner there that we've worked with for the last 15 years to continue to cover different areas, a lot of schools, a lot of deep wells, and a lot of communities that have really grown over the years, and that they've been able to really make their own bylaws in terms of how wells are operated and controlled by local communities. So it's not the government, it's not Ryan's Well that owns a well, it belongs to that community. So, you know, if you live in the States or Canada and you live in the country and you have your own well, you know, you have to take care of it. You know, you have to do certain things to make sure it doesn't break down. If you're sharing that with, you know, 20 households, those things get multiplied, and you have to really make sure people are taking care of it. So it's a lot of training that goes into that, but I think the results are really good. And then in Western Uganda, we do work with protected springs, so basic filters that come off the mountains and filters for people who live in very mountainous rural communities. We've worked there with a women's collective for the last dozen years as well. So those are the 3 areas we'll be working in this year. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So, you know, we obviously scoped out your website quite a bit, and we know clean drinking water in that original well was the initial goal. Now you're working on clean water, sanitation services, facilities that you guys call WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene. I see you're coming up on project number 1500, if I'm correct. It was like 1491.
We're getting there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're, you know, 1,263 latrines. How many countries have you guys impacted with clean drinking water so far?
We've been lucky. We've been able to work in 17 different countries all around the world, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, in Haiti, and Mexico. We may be doing a second part of a pilot project later this year. So we've been lucky. We've been able to get support from all over the world, and we've been able to help projects all over the world.
Very cool. I think the most eye-opening thing for me from your website was the fact that 1 in 6 people do not have clean drinking water. Roughly 1 billion people. It is pretty amazing that a 6-year-old kid had an idea to go help with one problem that has now impacted over 1 million people. I think the count was around 1,047,390 and counting. Granted, that's probably going up every day, so I don't really know how you track that, but that's pretty cool.
Well, we've been around for 20 years now, the foundation. So it's over those 20 years, and, you know, we're able to keep on adding to the total, but make sure that those numbers are sustainable as well. And it's not easy, but it's something that, you know, if you're not doing that with that in mind, then there's no point in it at all. So
That's cool. Walk us through, I guess, what your largest need looks like and what is next and how we can help.
I think our largest need is just advocacy for water issues in general. I think it's something that we take for granted every day. And, you know, we're reminded when you look at, in Canada, we have big problems with First Nations reserves who are still under boil water advisories. You look at the States, you look at Flint, Michigan, you look at droughts that happen almost every other year now. And it's something that we need to advocate for taking care of water in our own backyards. And at the same time, part of what we do is funding and making sure that people all around the world have access to water so that they can build their own communities. You know, if kids don't have water, you're not going to school. You're spending your day going and getting water for your family so your mom can cook and clean. If you have water at your school, you can go to school and you can bring the water home at the end of the day. So something that seems so insignificant and small has that much of an impact. And then less people are getting sick, more people are able to work, more time is freed up for adults and women to be able to live their lives. So it's one of those building blocks that you can't have water, you can't do a heck of a lot. I was born in a small town here in Canada, and you know, I think I have had that mindset, like if you work hard, like you can succeed. And I think one of the things that really bothered me about the water issue in particular is that people didn't even get that opportunity. So I think that's our biggest mandate is fundraising and advocacy for people who, you know, could succeed and to give them that opportunity. Mhm.
Very cool. Out of all the projects you've been a part of, and everywhere you've been, which one stands out as the most memorable experience for you, or what comes to mind first?
That original Orion's Well back in the day was something out of this world. They did a documentary about it actually called Orion's Well a long time ago. But I think actually what just came to my mind, I was lucky I was able, when I started working for Orion's Well 4.5 years ago, I was doing almost exclusively the project work, and I was able to live in Uganda for about almost 4 months. And I remember we were doing an actual well. I was part of the drill team, and we were going to this really remote location. And a lot of things went wrong that day. I remember, like we got the truck stuck, and then we had to, you know, we had to switch the drill location site because there was a big rock in the way that we couldn't drill through. And then halfway through, there was a guy with this big, huge cowboy hat at the drill site. And he said his name was John Wayne, and he put on this ridiculous accent from like an American Western movie. And he had everyone laughing so hard. We ended up staying late that night. We got everything done. Everything was good. We stood for, the community wanted to have us for dinner. So we ended up staying. I just remember, he reminded me a lot about my grandpa, actually. Just like how he was talking, how he was making fun of this crazy accent that he was putting on. It just got me thinking, like, no matter where we are in this world, we have, you know, characters and personalities that just, you know, shine. And it was, I just remember that food like tasting so good because of like the ambiance and the people that it belonged to, and that sticks out. Yeah.
Out of all this, what have you learned? What's the most valuable lesson you've learned from it?
I think the most valuable lesson that I've learned is to think like a kid. To, you know, when you have a dream, it's one thing to have something that you care about, but it's another thing to act on it. It's easy to find excuses and not to do something because, you know, we know better. We know how hard some things are to do. We know it's not okay to be different. We kind of get stuck in our comfort zones of, you know, our everyday lives and don't really tiptoe outside of it. But I think my words of advice for myself and for other people is, if you find that thing, like with me, it just happened to be water. It really connected with the idea of what water could bring. But with all of us, it could be different. And when you find that thing, whether it's water or the environment or a social issue or something in your own backyard or something on the other side of the world, that you don't push it down, that you find something small you can do about it, whether it's your time or whatever else, and do something, because you never know where it may lead. It may lead to a lifelong passion that you could get so much more out of than you would have ever thought.
Speaking of passion, on the fun side, what do you do for hobbies or when you're off work?
I'm a bit of a boring person. I read books, I play video games, I go camping, lots of board games, replanning my wedding now. It was supposed to happen next week, but that's not happening anymore because of COVID. So supporting my partner, she's in medical school right now, so tough times there, but I think she's going to be all right. And just living life and trying to give a little bit more than I get, but at the same time, been so lucky to have, you know, opportunities to meet so many people and go to so many different places that I never would have been able to. So just living life to the fullest and making sure Orion's Well is successful.
Love it. Anything else you'd like to share with us that we haven't talked about?
Just I wanted to just say, when I think about countries and I think about the U.S., I just had a great call the other day from a supporter who supported us for over 10 years from the States. And it's just, I think you guys have the biggest hearts, and no matter whether it's with Orion's Well or anything else, you and Keller Williams, like, thanks for all you guys do. And I know how much you're a part of things with veterans and things with everything else. Like the impact you have to the States and then Canada and the world but beyond is amazing. So just a huge thank you to you guys for things you already do.
Thank you. You're awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today. Keep up your great work, and maybe someday we'll get to join you at one of the wells. That'd be cool.
That sounds awesome.
Thanks, brother. Have a great week.
Have a good one, Andrew.